Stick with the theme of the budget. Tomorrow, the Finance Minister, Tito Mboweni, will deliver his budget speech for the year. What will his key focus areas be with our state-owned entities in disarray and the loss of business confidence? I'm joined by Business Leadership South Africa CEO, Busisiwe Mavuso. She joins us via Skype to preview what we can expect. Ms. Mavuso, thank you very much for your time. Let's start with the burning issue right now, and that is the Soweto residents. The bill there to Eskom is standing at 17 billion rand. In your view, how should residents who do not want to pay be dealt with when Eskom is in such a crisis?
Xoli, thank you very much for inviting me. Look, I don't think that we can entertain any conversation about non-payment. If people are going to be receiving services, I think let's be clear that we are going to have to pay for the services that we receive, because these entities that are providing us with these services, and in this case it's Eskom in particular, they are going to have to get the money from somewhere for them to continue generating electricity. We know that, for instance, the Soweto debt, I think, is sitting in the region of almost 20 billion. And I think this debt continues to escalate, over a number of years. So I think we're going to have to come to an agreement in terms of how does Eskom therefore recoup, this money, from Soweto and municipalities broadly. We know Eskom, for instance, at the moment, that it is the biggest single risk that we have, as an economy. And unless and until we decisively deal with how we are going to deal with Eskom, then unfortunately, we are not going to have this 5 trillion rand economy to talk about in the near future.
I want to stick with Eskom a little bit, if I can. And the issue here, Ms. Mavuso, is that you have residents who say that it was the very ANC government who encouraged them not to pay when they were not in power back in apartheid years. That was to try and cripple apartheid. My question perhaps is around Eskom itself. What should it do to try and get its money out of the Soweto residents? They've been trying to install prepaid meters. At times they are allowed, at times they're not allowed to get into people's houses.
And I think that is the biggest predicament that Eskom is currently sitting with. But you see, I think you have actually hit the nail on the head to say that where the problem started, this culture of non-payment, did not just, come out, on its own. It started from somewhere. And I think, to be honest, it started where this ANC-led government, in campaigning for the elections, they would therefore go to Soweto and other townships and promise them free everything. Free electricity, free housing, free education, free health. And unfortunately, only our fiscus and our economy is not big enough, and our pockets are not deep enough to actually can afford, to give free services, to the entire 59 million South Africans, at no cost whatsoever. And I think even if you look at the most advanced economies, people still do pay for the services that they receive. So I don't know, therefore, what we thought we were going to achieve with these promises. So I think it therefore also shows the short-sightedness of those that are in political power, to actually continuously make promises that they actually can't keep. And I think it's actually been very clear we are doing exactly the same thing that we've been doing for the past 25 years in the last 2 years, where the credit rating agencies and the international community are now saying, we don't believe that you are actually in a position to can implement these structural reforms that you actually talk about. We are tired of the promises and we don't see any action that is actually coming through. So, you may blame Soweto and you may not, because you probably want to look at it and say, where did this start from? Yeah. So this culture, we have unfortunately bred this notion of, dependency in our people. So we're going to have, and chickens have come home to roost now. So we're going to have to find a way of how do we actually deal with this? How do we have a conversation to say that things are no longer how they used to be? So we therefore need to change this thing, and we now need you to actually start paying for the services that you're receiving.
Yeah. As business leadership South Africa, what are your key expectations of the finance minister's speech tomorrow? And I say this with the Moody's decision looming large.
There's really 3 things that are going to have to come out of this budget, Tony. The one thing we've already talking about is Eskom, but in particular the SOEs broadly, with a specific focus on Eskom, to say that are we going to continue giving them, these bailouts that we've been giving over the past few years? And if we do continue to give them the bailouts, what are the conditions that we actually attach to the bailouts that have been given? Are we actually deliberate and intentional about ensuring that there are credible strategies that are actually put in place to turn these institutions around? Because if there aren't such strategies, then unfortunately it is tantamount to actually flushing money down the toilet, as we have seen over the past few years.
And but you see, I'm out of time, but I can't not interrupt you here, because you are a board member at Eskom, and you talk about if there is no credible strategy that is going to come out in order to not send good money after bad. Some people will say, but you're pointing one finger at whoever that you're blaming, the rest of the fingers are pointing back at you.
No, but remember, you are asking me what we're expecting out of the minister. I'm saying to you, the minister is going to have to give the bailouts against a credible strategy. So probably if you want to have a discussion around does Eskom have a credible strategy or not, I will say to you, go and speak to the CEO of Eskom, and then you will see and, be the judge of whether Eskom does have a credible strategy or not. But I'm not talking about Eskom in particular. I'm talking about SOEs broadly, because the problem is bigger than Eskom. The biggest crisis is Eskom, but the problem is all of the 700 odd SOEs are actually in a similar situation. And the second one, Paul, is going to have to be a debt strategy, debt consolidation strategy that is clearly going to have to come out. And the last one, obviously, is going to have to be expenditure containment. We cannot continue to spend beyond our means. So if we agree that we have limited revenue, we have missed our revenue targets for 5 years in a row, how are we therefore going to ensure that the expenditure that we have as a country is one that is a resonance, with the revenue that we're actually bringing in?
All right. Thank you very much for your input there. That's the CEO of Business Leadership South Africa, Busisiwe Mavuso, talking to us via Skype.